Aryan Khan, Shah Rukh Khan's son, who was arrested in connection with the Mumbai cruise drug case on Sunday.
Those snippets became headline for days, irrespective of the amount of drugs, all because of a law that was passed in 1985. This law is called the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act, or the NDPS Act, which prohibits manufacturing, trade, use of drugs in any form except for medical or scientific purposes. Today, some people regret creating that law.
I'm ashamed of our campaign in 1984-85.
That is Dr. Rajesh Kumar, who had signed a petition in 1984 asking for strict laws to curb drug abuse in India. A push from Western countries attempting to keep their streets clean, and many in India, like Rajesh, rallied for harsher laws that gave birth to the NDPS Act. Now, more than 2 decades later, when thousands are languishing in jails, many like Rajesh are appealing that the very same NDPS Act be amended so that it does not victimize the user. I'm Devina Sengupta, and you're listening to the Morning Brief. Today, Dr. Rajesh is the Executive Director at Society for Promotion of Youth and Masses and closely works with victims of substance abuse. His outlook towards dealing with the end user of a drug or opioid of any form has definitely changed since 1984.
As per the Government of India data, around 5 crore people, those who are dependent and they need treatment today, not tomorrow. So that is one. And if 5 crore people are dependent, then where we send them? Should we send them to jail, or we have to be very realistic that they need to be provided treatment and they have to be brought into the ambit of the entire health system, where the treatment, rehabilitation and recovery should be ensured even by the law.
He alleges that only certain parts of the Act are implemented, whereas treatment options for those with smaller quantities of drugs are often ignored by the courts. Doctor, you were one of the people who did lobby for this NDPS Act, right, in the 1980s? And now you say you are ashamed that you ever lobbied for it. What made you change your mind? I mean, what happened?
Drug dealer should be in jail, not the drug user. We have to take this individual to treatment program, not to jail. Unfortunately, in last 20-25 years, things have changed so much that we feel very uncomfortable. And the global players, for example, 1985 NDPS Act, where we had a big pressure from Western lobby, and they said that criminalize everything. And now they have decriminalized in their countries, and we are still continuing. It is like 377 in a new avatar.
In a country where you have bhang, ganja, hashish, marijuana, different forms of it in different versions. In fact, there are certain festivals, there are certain communities where it's a very accepted practice. Is it possible actually to officially ban these? Because India, as diverse as it is, where do you say this is accepted, this is not accepted?
These are the drugs which are not long-term dependency formation. I'm not saying that it does not create dependency. It creates dependency, but then education, sensitization, counseling, all those things come. But if you say that someone is using marijuana will get 10 years jail, and that happened initially. The jail term for marijuana and heroin was same, but the profit in marijuana and profit in heroin was so much different. So the people started selling more and more smack. That's why when in 1985 the number of heroin users were in thousands. Now the heroin users are almost like 3 crore. So these are the things which are very important for the policymakers and people, those who are implementing it, that where country should go.
When there are more jails than rehabilitation centers in a country, the doctor is clear that he's asking for decriminalization of drugs and not legalization.
There is a difference between decriminalization and legalization. I give you an example of Bihar. In Bihar, alcohol is illegal, but in UP, West Bengal, Jharkhand, it is legal. So in Bihar, if someone consumes alcohol, will go to jail for 10 years. So legalization and decriminalization, these are two different things.
And when you say I am advocating, just the way you were part of the 1980s groups who did advocate for the act, How are you going about it? Are there forums? Have you all approached the Home Minister? How are you going about it?
So we are pleading to government that please don't criminalize individuals, and Ministry of Social Justice was kind enough to look at our issue, and I think now they have made some suggestions to government that drug use should not be criminalized. In fact, I heard a statement by State Minister of Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and he said that we are for decriminalization of the drug rather than sending them to jail.
You've got an interesting recommendation from the Social Justice Ministry that's again, in fact, put forth this debate over whether this is the kind of action that needs to be taken. Now, the ministry has sought decriminalizing possession of small quantities of drugs for personal consumption. It's suggested to review the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act, that's the NDPS Act, and has recommended to adopt a more humane approach and avoid prison for drug users and drug addicts.
Anubhuti Vishnoi, my colleague who has been tracking the case, explains to me the many to's and fro's that is taking place within the government on these rules.
This is a stringent act. Bail provisions are very stringent in it. What the government was looking to do is basically enhance some of the provisions, especially illegal trade, large quantities, and curb spread of illicit drugs through the dark web. The latest round of drug busts by the Narcotics Control Bureau was showing that there was a huge illegal drug trafficking on the web.
What these new provisions will be? I mean, I read your reports where you've mentioned that interministerial discussions are still on, but what would these new provisions be?
The original amendments which were proposed, and this legislation, the draft amendment has actually been withdrawn now for a rethink in light of all the debate around it. Earlier, to enhance punishment for some offenses relating to trafficking of large quantity of drugs, also empower enforcement agencies further by treating their inquiry as judicial proceedings, even include provision of forfeiture of property in case of a lesser quantity to increase the scope of the law. After the Social Justice Ministry brought in suggestions, they did pull back a little bit, and whoever consumes small quantities can be imposed a fine of 10 to 20,000 and a 6-month to 1 year rigorous imprisonment. But the Social Justice Ministry maintains no, you should not have any kind of imprisonment for these people.
What do you see next happening? What are your sources telling you?
Well, the latest development is the Department of Revenue has withdrawn the draft cabinet note to amend the NDPS Act and has said it is pulling it back for reconsideration. We also gather that presentations are being held and more information has been sought on the suggestions made by the Department of Social Justice and Empowerment. So that is a good sign. I think there is scope for some fresh thinking on the legal and policy framework around drug abuse and drug trafficking. We've reported on some of the suggestions which came in. Some are interesting, like even recommending punishment for officials who may be engaging in vexatious entry or harassing somebody without reasonable ground. Also, greater immunity from prosecution to addicts volunteering for treatment. These are being talked about. The Social Justice Ministry is suggesting that you don't even use the term addicts. You should say a drug user or dependent. So complete decriminalization. Also easing rules for the use of cannabis for medicinal purposes. So some good thoughts, ideas are coming in. Let's see where it goes. I think the government will take a little more time to come up with a more robust bill.
Bharat Chugh, advocate and former judge in many of Delhi's district courts, tells me that the legalese are so vague that jail becomes the norm while bail becomes the exception. Bharat, explain the NDPA Act to me. What happens if I am caught with a substance which is not accepted?
So in such a case, it would depend on what's the quantity of that substance that you're caught with. The definition of what is a drug or what is a narcotic or what is a psychotropic substance under the Act is a very, very wide definition. Depending on what the quantity is, the Act or the scheme of the Act is, it makes a distinction between three broad categories. It buckets quantities into a small quantity or an intermediate quantity or a commercial quantity. And in each of those cases, there would be different implications. For instance, in a case where the quantity is very less, then the law would normally entitle you to bail in certain cases. If the quantity is higher, then the offense becomes non-bailable and cognizable. It means that the police officer can arrest you without a warrant from the court. would not release you on bail and you'll have to be produced before a court, and then the court would then decide if you have to be granted bail or not. And given the way the law is structured, getting bail in an NDPS case is extremely difficult.
Bharat is quite vocal about the need to change what he calls the draconian NDPS Act, where there is a verdict before trial. For instance, when movie icon Shah Rukh Khan's son Aryan Khan was sent behind bars for about 3 weeks, this very NDPS Act came under the limelight.
It's a verdict before a trial. There are other aspects of the act which are equally disturbing, if not more. For instance, we as a criminal justice system, we normally say that every person is presumed to be innocent until the charge is proved beyond all reasonable doubt. But that presumption of innocence, which is a very basic element of fairness, is turned on its head in an NDPS offense where the court starts off with the presumption of guilt, and it is for the accused or the suspect to come to the court and prove her innocence. So this is something that's known as a reverse onus in the law. That's something that's very, very draconian.
If amendments are done, and there's always the case where the drugs that is being used today may be very different than what was happening earlier. They are far more sophisticated drugs. How do you prevent issues of sale of drugs on dark web, or reduce the coming in or the imports of these drugs, and at the same time make the law more relaxed? I mean, how do you do that?
That's a very good question. I think the law needs to very carefully make a distinction between consumers of small quantities. Countries across the world are decriminalizing such cases and looking at them more scientifically instead of just prosecuting people. For instance, simple things like having better regulation at the customs, better regulation in terms of the dark web, or the use of cryptocurrency that may finance such a thing. All of that becomes important, and if that is done, then the focus again should shift to the producers and the manufacturers and not the end users.
If they have access to the bail amount, are they languishing in jail for months?
Absolutely. I used to go to jails to actually see how many under trials are languishing there for want of bail. And there's hundreds and thousands of people out there who do not have proper representation. There are some people who do not know that they can apply for bail. Then there are people who've been granted bail by the courts, but they are not able to furnish the bail amount. And given the nature of the law, where the denial of the bail is the rule, and bail is the exception, which is totally opposite to how it works elsewhere. Because of that, then you may, in terms of timelines, this can take years and years. We've seen NDPS trials going on for a decade, and the person at the end of the trial may very well be acquitted. But then again, you've stayed in for the entirety of that period, and in that sense, the process itself becomes the biggest punishment.
And while Bharat and I were talking from Delhi and Mumbai, the legal loopholes faced in smaller towns and villages can absolutely ruin lives.
The facilities and infrastructure is absolutely dismal there. People don't have basic healthcare facilities for ordinary health issues, and I think no personal experience, of course, with how the de-addiction facilities are elsewhere in the country, but safe to assume that they wouldn't be there.
Neeraj Kumar, former Delhi Police Commissioner, chalks out the drug routes and difficult tasks cut out for the men in uniform.
The origin of these drugs are mostly overseas. They come from, either the Golden Crescent, which is Pakistan and Afghanistan, or the Golden Triangle to the eastern part of India, which is Myanmar, Laos, and Thailand. And we are caught in between. Of course, there is a small player in the shape of Nepal as well. And not to forget some of our own territories in India where very high quality of cannabis is grown. So given this scenario, what happens is that we get hold of an intermediary, we catch hold of the next and then the next steamer, but unfortunately, we are not able to go to the source.
How do you think the police force can change its modus operandi when it comes to drug menace?
That's a very good question. In fact, we have also done operations where we have had what are called controlled deliveries. Controlled deliveries are that you know that drugs are being supplied from one source to a certain destination. We catch hold of some intermediary and we tell the intermediary that we know that you are in this business and we have the option of booking you, but we are giving you an opportunity by letting you go ahead with your supplies. We will turn a blind eye to what you are doing, provided you tip us off at the right moment of delivery so that we are able to catch hold of the person who is receiving the supplies. And we have tried to work out the entire chain.
How frustrating is it for the police forces and the various task forces who are given the responsibility of managing or curtailing drug abuse? And at the same time, there are bail options or there are different series of punishments because you don't want to just penalize someone for a, let's say, comparatively smaller charge. But at the same time, you are held responsible to curtail it as well. How challenging is that?
It is challenging because if there are rave parties, happening all around, then you are to blame. If every second Bollywood party in Mumbai, for instance, drugs are being served freely, it doesn't reflect very well on the Mumbai police or the Mumbai NCB or the anti-drug squad of Mumbai. So, and at the same time, if you lay your hands on these high-profile drug users, then you imagine what kind of media backlash or public backlash happens.
Yes, high profile parties, etc., is different. But how do the police force again stop it from being used in communities? It's very accepted.
Yes, the frank answer to that question is that in so many places we turn a blind eye. For instance, on the streets of Varanasi, or say even in Ujjain, or even say in Manali, people turn a blind eye. It is the choice of the people. I remember I was DGP of Goa in 2006-07, and the order of the day. And when I realized that it was happening, I said, I will not allow this. And I went after these rave parties systematically. And believe it or not, in a matter of about 6 months or so, the rave parties stopped. It came to a point where MLAs came to me and said, okay, you are not allowing the rave parties. I'm going to have them in my farmhouse and let's see how you stop them. That was a challenge thrown at me. I said, okay, you try and hold it and I'll see what I can do. So I never went to their farmhouse. All I did was put up a picket a little away, a police picket, and started checking the people who were going for the party. And I started checking their passports and they all ran away. The party never happened. And there were accusations that, the present DGP has hurt the tourism industry of Goa and so on and so forth. So what I'm trying to say, that the people who are in charge, they have to take a call whether we should allow this or we should not allow this. Whether we should allow the tourism sector to be hit or not hit. Whether we are going to take on the politicians who are behind these rackets or not. It is a personal choice. After all, this was happening even before me. And people turned a blind eye that, Goa, rave parties in Goa, it's the done thing.